All right, guys, we'll just give it a few minutes and then we'll get underway and give people a bit of an opportunity to join. All right, everyone. Welcome to the second internal community AMA for Yield Magnet. Obviously, it's been a brilliant week. We've managed to get a lot of stuff out. So I'm going to change the AMA format a little bit from last time. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a bit of a look just in the review of kind of what we've done over the last couple of weeks since our last AMA, just to kind of summarize and bring it all together. And then we'll use that to give some context for what we're going to do moving forward over the next kind of few weeks. So to kind of touch on, obviously quite a lot has changed in terms of where we are now as a project, what resources we now have access to. Obviously, from a resourcing level, probably two of the biggest ones were the IBM Partner Plus program and AWS Amazon Activate, which is absolutely great because the vast majority of our tech stack, for example, is already on Amazon. So we've been able to start getting funding through way of AWS credits, and we've already started applying that to our technology costs. So that's great. We've been able to reduce some of our overheads there, and we're currently in the works to look at trying to get some exposure through some of the tools that are available on AWS Activate for technology startups. And that's something that we'll hopefully get some updates from in the coming weeks as well. Now, in terms of our onboarding process for new users, we've gone back to using Linktree. Linktree was something that we had back in the day, and then we pivoted to the website when we did the redesign of the homepage. We did the whole rebrand. However, given the amount of information that exists in our ecosystem, we wanted to create a centralized, simple, easy to find place where users and investors would have access to all of the relevant information, Telegram channel, link channels, and so on. Because what we kind of discovered was for you to learn that we have, our development updates chat or our announcements channel, you kind of needed to be in the chat when like the development logs came out. And so I think a lot of people weren't actually aware that we had those channels and had those sources of information. So we've added that functionality and that feature to allow everyone to have access to that. Now, moving on, we had the Startup Summit in Chiang Mai, courtesy of Yellow Connect. Now, for those of you that don't know, Yellow Connect's actually a very large organization. They are across the Web3 space. They're in the middle of building a aggregated market maker. It's essentially a DEX clearance system. And what's going to happen is it's going to allow further trading of cross-chain assets from a single network. Now, this is going to be without bridging. So for me, this is very interesting. I need to better understand the technology they're developing. We are in some talks with them at the moment just to look at what technology they do have available, what tools they have available, what they have available in the ways of venture capital and incubation, to get a better understanding if there's going to be some form of a lineup there and a way that there can be a mutually beneficial relationship. So that's something I'll be deep diving a little bit more over the course of the next few weeks. Now, we also had HODL Magnet's first project AMA with the guys from Chatter Shield. We spoke to the guys from Shield after. Great reception, great result with the AMA. Obviously, the guys are building quite a brilliant project, so it was really good to be able to see what they're building and get better insights on it. And we're going to be doing a lot more of those moving forward as well. And I'll talk more about HODL Magnet and some of the stuff we have coming up when we get to the part where we talk about the next few weeks. Now, we've also closed our AIX competition that we ran, partnered with AIX. Some brilliant entries came through. It's actually pretty amazing to see some of the creativity of the community and the amount of time and effort that people put into their submissions and entries and doing revisions and playing around with the prompts for the image generation. We have extended the announcement deadline for selecting the winners. And the reason for that is we wanted to make sure the entry was visible to everyone. So the reason for this is originally we were using dual cache tags, which was AIX Magnet. Unfortunately, Twitter seems to be filtering out some of the results. So we can see most of the entries, but we weren't able to see all of them by doing that dual cache tag search. And so what we wanted to do is to make it fair to everyone that participated. We wanted to give them an opportunity if their cache tag wasn't showing, if their post wasn't showing, on that cache tag search, to manually submit their entry so that we can make sure that we don't miss anyone and that we review everyone when we do select our winner. Now, on the development side, we've had the first kind of iterative review of magnets. So what happens is we've been obviously working backwards and forwards of development, and with Sarawat, who's designing the new smart contracts. We had a meeting 2 days ago to go over what's been built so far, just make sure it aligns with the needs and demands of the business and the project. There were some amendments that we were looking at making just because obviously we've learned a few things since the build commenced, and we found better ways to do things. So we're changing the way we're going to integrate some of the features. And we've just started on our code review. So what will happen for the Magnets code is myself and Winston are going to go through and do manual code reviews. And then once the manual code reviews are done, that's going to get sent off to an external developer that we work with, who specializes in security vulnerabilities. So he's going to pretty much vet the current functionality that's been built so far to see if there's any flaws, what happens when we test it with extreme values, what happens when we test it on different loads. Is it going to be protected from, your standard malicious attacks, things like reentrancy? And then we'll obviously look at more creative ways that we can attack the contract and just give it a little bit of stress testing. So in terms of the Magnets development, that's going to be the iterative process. We'll work on it internally. We'll review the code internally. It'll get shipped off to a third-party developer that we work with. He's going to review the code, do some additional testing, and then we'll keep rinsing and repeating. Once we have the build complete, then obviously we'll do another full set of audits on the contracts, and we might look at bringing in another auditing firm as well. So that's the Magnets development. So that's coming along great. At the moment, we have finished 90%, 95% of the base functionality. And we are now at the point where we've got a couple more smaller features to add, and then we will begin integrating the Omni-chain functionality, the Omni-chain architecture to the Magnets. So essentially, the Ethereum side of it's all completely built, and now we're going to look at making it EVM chain compatible. So that's the next thing up in the Magnets development. Now, moving on, we've done a fair bit on the dApp side. We were originally looking at integrating V3 pools on the Uniswap V3 pools so that users could trade assets that don't have V2 liquidity pools. Unfortunately, there's a challenge with the way that the smart contract, the decoding library we use. So what we're going to need to do is add that feature into Magnets, pretty much. So we've done all the dApp-Side architecture for it. We can pretty much press a button and the dApp will be able to support Uniswap v3. So we've already made the necessary changes in the new Magnets contracts as well to support that. So all that really means is for Uniswap v3 pools, we'll just have to wait for the Magnets to come in. On the note of different liquidity pools, we've also added a few extra security checks and measures just to look at how do we work with trade routing when we have projects that have multiple liquidity pools. So we've put all a bit more detailed analysis for the asset managers in there so they can see kind of the available liquidity pools for the token that they're trading. And then we've put different checks in for liquidity pools and constraints and so on. We've also added on the asset manager side a fast swap function. So this gives the asset manager the ability, if they want to push through a trade with relative speed. We know that obviously a lot of money can be made, especially on things like early launches. We do have asset managers that trade those early launches that are very, very good at doing that. And the ability to execute at speed is a very big part of that. So the fast swap function is pretty straightforward. What it does is that rather than performing a standard swap, it allows the asset manager to perform a swap with more aggressive gas limits. So this way the swap can clear faster. Now, in addition to that as well, more on dApp-Side, we are currently migrating or have done the migration for our database to MongoDB version 7. To essentially cut this short, what does this mean? You have two types of data normally that you work with, cross-sectional and time series. Cross-sectional data, you can imagine your standard CSV, Excel spreadsheet, which is kind of tables and rows. And then you have time series, which is, you have a data point for every minute, hour, second, and so on. MongoDB obviously works great with time series data. However, for us to do certain operations on that time series data, we want to upgrade to MongoDB version 7. So that's all been done on the back end. Winston's working on ensuring that all the data collection components are compatible with that as well. But that's, for the most part, taken care of. And then lastly, probably the biggest announcement I would say that's come up over the last couple of weeks since our last AMA was adding Melissa to the team. So Melissa has now joined the team as our new COO and CFO. She's got an absolute wealth of experience. I've been quite fortunate to know Melissa for a few years, actually. Back when I met her, she was managing a rather large conglomerate of companies in Australia known as the Ballantyne Group. So they had about 9 active companies, 6 active companies, I think another 7 different trust structures and investment portfolios, and then around about 120 staff. So she is an expert across multifaceted management. What does that mean? Essentially, she's really great at everything from HR to operational enterprise resource planning, financial, legal, and compliance. So these are a lot of things that I've been assuming the role for in Yield Magnet over the last year. However, to be quite frank, she's far more competent in these matters and far more of an expert in them than I am. So this is a massive, massive win for us in terms of being able to add skill and competency and in-house knowledge to our team. So that's probably the one thing I'm most excited for. Now, what does this mean moving forward? So one thing we are going to be doing now, and this will be, the transition will take a few weeks, so a couple of weeks. We are going to be restructuring the team internally. So why is this? Essentially, we are getting to the point where we are scaling and growing at a rate that we need to better define our organizational structure and responsibilities within that structure. So how is this restructure going to look? First of all, from the role of COO and CFO, so Chief Operational Officer, Chief Financial Officer, will be Mel. Mel will be responsible for HR practices, standard operating procedures and KPIs associated with them, and enterprise resource planning. She'll be responsible for developing our legal and compliance framework, financial management, bookkeeping. As when we incorporate, we'll have to do things like cash flow projections and valuations. So she's going to be responsible for that side of the business. Now, Dean will be stepping into the role of CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, and essentially he's going to be looking at things like brand exposure. He's going to be working very closely with John, who's our social media manager, to tailor and develop our marketing strategy and how we are putting forward the Yield Magnet brand. He's also responsible for things like UI design. What is the user experience when people come to our platform? What do they see? How do they feel about that? How easy is information to find? As well as new marketing initiatives, marketing related partnerships, and so on. Right. So that's going to be Dean's responsibility. Now, Dean's been around in crypto for, I think, on 10 years or a very, very long time and substantially longer than myself. So he, part of the reason we've been able to get to where we are, especially to even have such a successful launch as we did, was off the back of Dean, his experience and his networks. And so I can't think of anyone in this space that's going to be better suited for that role. So Dean will be running the flag there. Now, looking at the technology side, obviously, historically, I've taken up the role of tech lead. However, this will be changing. So Winston will be taking over as our Chief Technology Officer. And essentially what that means is he'll be responsible for managing the day-to-day operations of the development team, helping interface with the different members of the development team. So how is our smart contract development team working with our DAppSide development team and our external contractors? How is our architecture strung together? What are the business requirements, which I'll obviously work very closely with him on the requirements that we have for our users in the business and the prioritization of those items. And then he'll work to essentially work with the backlog and the development team on that. Winston as well has a wealth of experience. He, when I originally met Winston, he was the head of technology for a data engineering firm in Australia. And he taught me a vast amount of what I know about computer science and programming and development. So once again, I can't think of anybody that's going to be better suited to the role as Winston. And I'm really excited to kind of see what happens when we take the leash off, or so to speak, and take him out of that kind of system architect role that he's in and put him somewhere where he can really move at the speed that he's capable of. So lastly, if Winston's taking over CTO role, what does that mean for myself? I'll be stepping into a Chief Executive Officer role. Now, what does that entail? Because this is one I think a lot of people don't actually know what the CEO role is and what it does. My job is essentially to promote our project and our business at a strategic level. So this is through things like summit talks, like networking events, finding partnerships that will align with our project. There's a few Web 2 and Web 3 companies that I want to reach out to begin negotiations with and discuss mutually beneficial cooperation, because they have some technology that we would love to get our hands on, and I think that we can help benefit them, and especially for some of the Web 2 companies that want to step into DeFi and Web 3 but don't know how. I think there's definitely a link we can make there. I'm going to be focused on a lot more research and development, looking at the direction of the project. And once we're done with decentralized asset management and we've built everything out and we've expanded our ecosystem and that side of the project runs perfectly, what else can we do to work towards our end goal, which is helping users kind of generate an income from crypto? There's a lot of opportunity out there in the market, and we need to be able to strategize and build that framework in. I'm also going to be focused on doing things like grant application. I have to talk with a few incubators to look at what support services we can get access to. So in a nutshell, essentially my job becomes to promote our project to a wider audience, and to make sure that everyone in the team has the resources they need to do their job well. So this is going to be a massive change. I know it's not one that's really talked about much in kind of the Web3 space. Web2, things like this tend to be quite big news. And the reason for that is, look, ultimately, when it comes to structural changes and team restructures and clarifications of roles and duty, it's not something that's super sexy to talk about. But this is something that's foundational that will essentially drive the direction and the growth and the scaling of this project and this business moving forward over the next 5-10 years. Once the frameworks are in place and everything works and functions as it should, it gives us the capacity to scale very aggressively. Because right now we've spent the last year building our technology to scale. Now we need to build our internal business practices to do the same as well. Because ultimately right now we do have the capacity to scale to a few thousand users, but my question is, what happens when we have 100,000, 200,000 users? So this is part of the reason that we need to make these organizational changes so that we can do so efficiently. Now, we're also going to look at technology integration for some Web3 projects. I've been spending the vast majority of this week just gone, doing due diligence on a number of projects. As I've always said from day one, yes, there are a lot of other great DeFi projects out there, and a lot of other great crypto projects out there. But when it comes to technology level integrations, we are really selective on who we allow to walk through that door and pass through that gate. Because ultimately, if you don't do a technology integration correctly, you can potentially open up vulnerabilities for you and for your users. So this is something it requires a fair amount of my time. And so this is something else that I'll be able to focus a lot more on as Winston takes up the reins for CTO and then Mel takes up the reins for COO, CFO. Now, some other great news moving forward. February marks with it the 1 year point since Sigil launched under V1 token. Obviously, as we all know, we're now on the V2 token. What this means is at the end of this month, the liquidity pool for the original V1 token that just kind of sits there and it's dormant, that liquidity pool will unlock. And so that means that we have the ability to take that capital out and then use that to extend our development runway. So that's going to be great for us in terms of the cash flow for the project. Obviously, as we have seen increases in volume and as the project grows, we're naturally going to build and improve our cash flow anyway. But improving the capital balance of the project's treasury means we're going to be able to continue to grow and develop at a very aggressive pace like we have been without needing to worry too much about our burn rate and available capital. Obviously, we have backup plans should that become something that begins to worry us. Obviously, we hold a large amount of supply. We can always do venture capital with a small vested portion of supply and then mixed with equity once we incorporate. So financially, we do have a lot of options available to us. However, I would much prefer right now to just work on basic money in, money out, because it just doesn't really complicate things too much. But if we do need to then continue to grow more aggressively, we'll look at those other methods of capital raising as well. Now, let's talk about what we're going to be moving forward and developing as well. Over the next few weeks, we are going to be working on the back end for the pool analytics, and then the other investor analytics suite as well. So portfolio analytics, trade analytics, and platform analytics. So the pool analytics is, what do you see when you go to a pool dashboard when you're looking at, say, Eric's pool or the Callisto Capital pool or a Millions pool. What information are you given? Now, the design work for this has already been completed. I did it earlier last week. The only thing left for me to do for the pool analytics side is I just need to pretty much document all of it in a Medium article so that I can explain a little bit about what features we're adding to the analytics, what metrics we're adding, and what they actually mean. Because whilst I can, just provide the list that I've got with my design work, for those that have not been in the DeFi or even the traditional finance industry for very long, there might be some terms and some metrics that people are unfamiliar with. So I just want to get that out in a way that anybody off the street can read it who maybe isn't an expert in finance. So that'll be coming through next week. I'll try to get that out in the Medium article and get that posted in the community. And then I'll release the other analytic suite feature lists in tranches so that everyone can take a look at that. And we can also get some feedback from that as well. Analytics are actually really, really easy to build. It's not like smart contracts where you have to do all the work up front. You can build it and get feedback from users and change it because it's all in our Web2 infrastructure. As I mentioned, we're also working on the EVM compatibility. Now, the other thing we're going to be setting up, which is actually something I've wanted to do for a while, unfortunately, it just wasn't always priority one, is we're going to be setting up a public testnet environment. So what does this mean? Public testnet environment is essentially going to be try before you buy. For people that are considering wanting to be an asset manager, but aren't sure they want to, make that jump just yet, because obviously you have to pay gas to set up the pool, so there is a certain commitment required there. So for those people that are wanting to create a pool and wanting to get a bit of a better feel for the platform, we're going to be creating a testing environment that users can go into. And essentially create a pool, manage trades and positions in the pool, and see what the user interface is like, and essentially see if they can. I know, trading on Go Early testnet's a bit different to trading on mainnet, so I wouldn't say the performance is comparable, but it'll give users a really good idea of the experience and the things that they need to consider, and for people that want to do a little bit more due diligence, because I know we've been in talks with some existing asset management firms that exist in DeFi, and for them, their due diligence process is very, very long. So it'll give guys like that an opportunity to be able to come in, test our platform and test our system, and look at how transactions pass through before making the jump. So that's something I'm super excited for. We have all our testnet contracts on Go Early at the moment. I'm going to have a meeting with Winston later today. Actually, we're just going to take a look at if we still think Go Early is the most suitable testnet. And then if not, we can potentially change, but we'll do a review of that and we'll have the public testing environment out over the next couple of weeks. Now, other than that, on the development side, we have the asset manager user interface that we'll be improving as well. So essentially, we want to improve the UX for asset managers, make life a little bit easier, provide them with a bit more information. So we'll be making some smaller changes over the course of the next couple of weeks. We're not doing the big overhaul just yet. I want to do that closer to the release of magnets. But essentially the changes that we're making at the moment is just adding smaller features like a prompt for asset managers to use MEV blocker, for example, because obviously you can protect against front running and risks like that using MEV blocker in pools. It functions the same as you would trading that from Uniswap or any other wallet. So those security protections are there. We just want to make sure that it's kind of thrown in your face a little bit, and kind of really not something that you can miss, because if 9 out of 10 asset managers know how to protect against MEV and use tools like MEV blocker and one doesn't, well, the idea is we need to capture that one to make sure that they don't miss it as well. So just smaller changes like that I think at an aggregate level are going to add a lot of benefit to the platform. So that's essentially everything that I wanted to cover. Sorry, there is one more thing for Huddle Magnet. We will have an announcement going out later today, I believe. Just required I can get the graphic done on time. So I'll speak to our designers to get the graphic for the announcement. But that will relate to a project that will be joining us on Huddle Magnet for an AMA that's going to be coming up. Now, in terms of Huddle Magnet, we have more AMAs that we're going to be doing with projects, but we're also going to look at setting up, very similar to how we do regular Yield Magnet AMAs, we're going to be looking at doing regular Huddle Magnet AMAs, where the format's going to be a little bit different. Essentially, it's going to be a bit more open mic, where people are going to, we'll start off with a market review and talk about what's been going on in the market and what are some of the projects that have been big movers, and then we'll open the floor up for people to kind of talk a little bit about some of the projects that they've been tracking, some of the things that they're interested in, and what's their analysis of that. So it's kind of a bit more of a democratized AMA space. Obviously, once again, why do we do this? It's great to be able to create these spaces and these communities like that around which people can come and discuss. But there's also going to be a benefit for Yield Magnet, which is obviously the Huddle Magnet brand is tied very, very closely with Yield Magnet. It's listed as a subsidiary of Yield Magnet on just about every source of information. And so this will be a great way for us to begin growing the Huddle Magnet brand. At the end of the day, I think one of the big mistakes that people make in crypto is they always try to rapidly monetize. It's like, okay, I've released this product, but I have to monetize it tomorrow or today. And that's not always the case. So some of the best ROIs you're going to get are when you give value to the marketplace first and you help people as your primary goal, and then that's eventually going to come back as a return. So in the case of Huddle Magnet, we're going to create a space that people can come, discuss projects, can get insights, and in the long run, this is going to help serve as one, a pool of prospective asset managers, because everyone in there is going to be a trader, and two, it's going to give us a wider audience that we can seek to monetize in the future, but that'll be a longer term goal. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. Obviously, it's been an absolute brilliant few weeks. And like I said, we've got a lot more coming over the next couple of weeks. We've got a few more partnerships that we're currently looking at that need a little bit more due diligence, but the pipeline is looking pretty good over the next couple of weeks. So here's to hoping that we continue at the pace that we are, which I believe we will. And I'll now open the floor up to any questions. You can either raise your hand in the space here, and I can give you the microphone, or you can jump into the Yield Magnet main chat and feel free to ask any questions there.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for letting me on. I appreciate what you guys are doing.
No worries. Thanks for joining us. And how can I help you? Shoot.
Yeah, I just had a question. Comment. So I had spoke to the one of you guys' competitors, Valio, last year about creating a strategy to attract Telegram call groups, people who call a lot of different picks and different trading. There's people who follow a lot of traders to attract them to have their own pool and fund. I was wondering if you all had any plans to do any incentive campaigns to attract those guys.
Yeah. So that's actually a great question. First of all, you've pretty much hit the nail on the head, because the users of those call competitions are one of our primary demographics.
Okay.
So We previously ran a SectBot competition in HODL Magnet, and this is actually one of the purposes for HODL Magnet is we're going to be running regular call competitions within HODL Magnet Telegram group to be able to attract these call traders so that we can then convert some of them onto the platform as asset managers. And we can also see their performance as well prior to onboarding them and approaching them. So we can look at kind of selecting some of the best ones. We also are looking at potentially ways that we can partner with some of these these leaderboard service providers in order to be able to either get access to the database or essentially and use that as a leads list, or if we can advertise through their services as well. We've still got to see in what ways we can convert that demographic into end users. But yes, that is one of our primary sources, or will be one of our primary sources for user adoption, because it's you get your lead qualification rate is like 70%, right? It's a very targeted demographic.
Right, because a lot of like copy trading is like a trending thing right now, especially on chain copy trading and copying wallets and all that type of stuff. I was just wondering if you all had a way to attract talent, but that was one of my questions. The last question was would you be having like competitions for people who have the most deposits in their pool or the most growth in their ROI for the month or something like that?
Yeah, correct. So we'll definitely be doing that. We're going
Nice.
to do that after the Magnets release. So this is likely something that will follow in the kind of month or two after the Magnets release. Obviously, if we're going to do a competition like that, that's going to be part of our massive user drive, right? So pretty much Magnets will come out and we're going to push very, very aggressively on user adoption. So in order to attract a lot of talent, we're going to need a rather large amount of funds as a prize to attract some of the larger and better traders. So one of the things, we already started discussions on this, I think a month ago. It's a very slow burn in terms of discussions because Magnets aren't done yet. But we're going to have to look at things like sponsorships and advertising to help raise the capital for competition prizes. Because obviously, it doesn't make sense for us to just take $40,000, for example, or $30,000 and say, yep, that's the competition prize, because we need to consider our ROI as well. But yes, we will be running competitions after the release of Magnets to incentivize user adoption, to incentivize investor attention as well. I think a lot of people come to events like that even if they're not participants, just to kind of see what's trading and who's trading, and that will give us I think a lot of exposure as well.
What is Magnets?
Sorry. So Magnets are the next generation of our investment pools. So they're currently in development at the moment. There's a Medium article. If you jump into our main Telegram chat, you can ask one of the mods or I can send it through. It's a Medium article that pretty much explains what Magnets is, what we're building, what the development timeline is, the feature list, and so on.
Got you. And I noticed I've been on here for a second, but last question is just adoption and education for new investors. Are you all planning to have a campaign to have a spokesperson for conferences, or just have an inbound for new people to understand what crypto is, so we can get them to do that, to invest?
Yeah. So this is actually a really, really, really interesting point, and I did want to bring this up during the AMA, but I did forget. So thank you for reminding me. Yes. So let's talk about two parts. There's two parts to this. There is education for users that are in crypto, but maybe not experienced with traditional finance, managed investment structures, selecting managed investments, and so on. And then there's the users that are not crypto related at all, right? Or people that exclusively trade on like centralized exchanges. In terms of the education of the project and the platform, the wider level in terms of conferences and things like that, and helping educate people about our product, I'll be taking care of that. And part of the reason why I'm stepping more away from operational and day-to-day development is so I can focus on that. In terms of education for users, that come into the space and they go, okay, how does this platform work? I'm used to just buying on Uniswap. What's going on here? What are all these metrics that I'm seeing? How do I know which pool to pick? We're going to provide education for all of that as well by way of comprehensive documentation, tooltips in the UI, and then an actual education program later as well, where people can come in and have a course that they do essentially on how to pick a good pool. We'll also later add things like traders education courses, because that's another source for us to be able to generate leads for asset managers, which is if people can come and learn tips and tricks on how to be a good trader and all of that, a lot of them at the end of it will be given like a call to action to say, hey, congratulations on graduating from your trading course. Would you like to start a pool? Essentially. So there's kind of those different areas of education that we're going to be focusing on.
That's awesome.
In terms of non-DeFi users, this is something that requires a lot more research, and this is where we actually had the discussion yesterday, because we're considering looking at ways to do it. Whether or not it's possible, I don't know. And once again, this is why I want to step away from day-to-day operations, so I can explore this a little bit more, is we want to look at how we can take the everyday man that's not a crypto user specifically and on-ramp them onto the platform. So what do I mean by that? Is, a big draw for this, for our project, sure, it's, to help people find great traders, but what about, what about some guy that has never seen crypto before, barely understands it, sees all the money that people are making, and wants to be able to, get in on the action, wants to be able to dedicate a portion of his portfolio to high risk, high return, which kind of is the crypto space. We want to look at if it's possible to create a way to on-ramp those users. Now, what that looks like, I don't know. We have to talk. I'm going to have to talk with some centralized exchanges to see if they are willing to provide on-ramp services. I need to talk with fiat on-ramp providers, because essentially we want to structure that in a way where we never actually take access. We never take custody of fiat funds, because then you have to deal with the whole regulatory framework that comes with that. But we want to explore ways that, yes, we can target non-DeFi users. And non-crypto users.
This last thing, because that is literally the biggest thing I think is stopping us from having major adoption. I'm doing my part. I have a investment group that I teach new people about crypto security, and you guys are one of our top picks in our investment group. And one of the major things that's helping me grow my group of just newbies is I'm recruiting influencers to promote my group, to teach about crypto, teach about wallet security and things like that. And I was thinking, if a crypto company was to partner with influencers to teach crypto, because they already have these huge followings, not to sell a token, but to actually give education to their audience. But that was all. I really appreciate what you guys do. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Actually, if you can send me a DM just on Telegram after this, because I'd like to find out a little bit more about kind of the education services you're providing. For us, this is always a big thing too. How can we protect investors from some of the challenges and some of the issues that we see in crypto? But we'll have a bit of a discussion about that offline.
Okay, just send a message in Telegram, and then I'll find your admin.
Yeah, perfect. That's fine. Great. I'll send that to you later. That's all right. Thank you very much. Any other questions from anybody before we close out? You can request speaker privileges, or you can just ask the question away in the main Telegram chat, and I'll just give it a couple of minutes.
Oh, actually, I'm restricted in the in the main yield magnet. I'll just have to find a team admin.
Yeah, I've just posted hi in the chat, so I think if you can send me a DM from
Sam,
that, and then
got
I'll
it.
also get I'll get the admins to fix the access issue.
Okay, just sent it. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, guys. We'll pretty much wrap it up then for the day. Oh, actually, Han, sorry, do you have some comments on the AMA? Let me see if there's any questions here. No. Okay, great. So let's wrap it up for the day. Thank you very much for everyone for attending. Like I said, it's been an absolutely great week. And I'm super excited for what we're going to be rolling out over the next couple of weeks. Stay tuned as well today to the announcements channel because we will be announcing the next AMA for Huddle Magnet and which project's going to be coming on there. So until then, we're in main chat. You know where to find us. Any questions, anything like that, feel free to reach out. And then we'll be running another AMA internally either next week or the week after. Like I said, we want to follow a very regular format so we can keep you guys updated and abreast of the situation. Thank you very much.